Welcome back to Talk 30 to Me, the podcast where we dive deep into the beautiful, messy, and transformational years of our 30s. I'm your host, Mr. Robert, and today's topic is one that carries a lot of weight, whether we talk about it or not. This week, we're asking to have or not to have children. Because in your 30s, the questions get louder. Family expectations, ticking clocks, self-reflection, they all collide. And the truth? There's no right answer. Today, I'm joined by three incredible guests who each are walking very different paths when it comes to building or redefining what family means. You ready? Let's get into it. Alrighty, let's meet our guests. First, we have Dr. Simone Ellis, a family therapist who has made the intentional decision to remain child-free. Simone, welcome.
Thank you, Robert. Excited to have this conversation. It's overdue.
Next, Eric Mendoza joins us. He recently completed the adoption process with his husband and has a beautiful 3-year-old daughter at home now. Welcome, Eric.
Hi, Robert. Parenthood has been a wild, beautiful ride, and honestly, not the one I originally envisioned.
And finally, Jasmine Green, an elementary school teacher who's thoughtfully navigating whether, how, and when to start her own family. Jasmine, welcome.
Hi, Robert. Happy to be here and still figuring it all out.
All right, let's start simple but real. What factors influenced your decision about parenthood in your 30s?
For me, it was freedom, emotional freedom, financial freedom, and generational healing. My mother was exhausted. My grandmother was exhausted. Nobody asked them if they wanted motherhood, it was just expected. I realized I had permission to say, this life path isn't mine.
For me, it was healing too, but from a different angle. As a gay man, I never thought parenthood was even possible for me. When I met my husband, he had this dream. And slowly, it became my dream too.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I love kids. I work with them every day. But when it's your own life, your own body, your own career, it's complicated. I'm open to many paths, biological, adoption, fostering, but it has to feel right.
And right there, it has to feel right. That's the part nobody really talks about. I'll say for me, I have always wanted children, but the more that I have worked with children, the less focused on having them I have been, which I don't know if that was intentional or, just being otherwise occupied, that you don't do the necessary work in order to have them. But I've been close twice. I'm not really ready to talk about that. But I have always wanted kids. Considering I have no uterus, the number of children was always wild to me, but I had always said I wanted 6 and no particular grouping. I don't care as far as like the number of boys or girls or whatever. I just knew that I wanted to have them. And I know like an early memory that I have, because I was a latchkey kid. So I was always, around, kids anyway, because you're at school, but I was always around other kids before and after school. So you have a little bit more like free time and thought, to play separate from, recess and whatnot. But I just remember, the game to play when I was growing up was house. Somebody was always, generally somebody was always the mama, the daddy. There were always kids playing the kids and all that stuff. And I remember every single game that I played. Or especially if like a game was already going and I was just going to join the game in whatever capacity, like the roles would change in the game. So like if there was already, somebody who was playing the mama, somebody who was playing the daddies, and people who were playing the kids or maybe even other family members, we were weird. I don't know what that was about, but anyway, I just remember as soon as I would enter the game, the roles would change and I would become the dad. There would be no mother and everybody would become a child. And that used to bother me. because I'm just like, what what is this? Because I mean, it would be an already established game. Like they might have been playing 10, 15 minutes before I got there. And then as soon as I arrived, now all the roles have changed and I got to do with like 8, 9, damn 10 kids. Ain't gonna be able to do that at the same time. Oh no. But it would happen almost just about every time. I would enter a game or see that a game was being played. Like the roles would change, and I would end up the dad with all of these kids. And I won't say my awareness at that time was that high, but I knew something was just a little off because why would like, and don't get me wrong, it was mildly flattering too. Cause I'm like, oh, well, these kids, my friends, or, whomever it happened to have been at the time. Cause, latchkey on either side of the day is populated with a bunch of people. So it's not necessarily always people that are in my class or people that I know, just people who also happen to have parents who hate them and drop them off at school an hour and a half before school starts. No, I'm kidding. Okay, I'm halfway kidding. So, but they like me enough that they want to, be, parented, fathered, cared for by me. Like that was nice, I guess. But my interest in participating was based on what it is I saw. And when I began to participate, I didn't get what I saw. So that was, interesting that, the rules always changed when I participated. And I don't know of too many other instances where somebody would join a game and then everybody would be like, oh, I want to be the baby. I want to be a baby. I want to be a baby. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But I've known for my whole life, I suppose, that, I always wanted 6 kids. And again, not having a uterus, where I got that from, I don't know. But I did, come from, well, maybe not my immediate family, but specifically my grandmother and them, like it was 13 of them. That was a completely different time. I don't know where I got 6 from, but if I'm trying to make myself remember back in those days, like why I would have even had a number on it as opposed to just being open-ended, I might have just thought like half of what grandma and them had. Would have been my logic. Now, does it make any sense? Probably not. But it was my logic at the time. But to your point, Dr. Ellis, like about freedom, I don't even know if I really thought about it like that. Which what you said is a very good point. But in contrast, I don't even know if I thought about it in a release of any way. I just remember overall, now don't get me wrong, there were some not great days. But overall, like my childhood was pretty cool. And it was more so less about any active involvement from my parents or anything like that, or even my community for that matter. It was more so the time. I think the time to be a child, and I can only speak about the years that I've been alive, like the time I was a child was the perfect time to be a child. Like I can't imagine what a child's life is like now. It seems terrible. And I pray every morning, I'm so grateful unto God that I am not a child right now, because this is absolute hell. And I would I wouldn't make it out of this. It's just a completely different time. So I just feel like the time that I was a child was the perfect time to be a child in this world. Because a variety of freedoms, to your point, were extended, now, there are some that might relate this to trauma, and then others that would relate this to just, we were, a little tougher. Some might say a little safer. Some might argue, a little less involved and connected. So we had the benefit of being absent-minded about things, but I had a key to my house at 7. I took the bus. My grandmother was a cab driver, so I knew how to take a cab when I got older. I was living my best, and I didn't even watch the show, but I was living my best Sex in the City life as far as taking cabs any and everywhere, leading a rather adult or grown life because I, had responsibilities. So I could I could get out, well, if I wanted, I could get out of school or whatever it was that I was in, take the bus or walk, because I did a lot of things that were in my neighborhood. Now, I use the word neighborhood, but it was definitely many, 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 many blocks. But I liked to walk. I liked to be outside. So it was nothing to walk from school home, or at least walk from school to the library and catch the bus from the library home, or from the school to Dunkin' Donuts, or the school to McDonald's, or the school to the arcade, and, then take the bus wherever it was that I wanted to go, and then eventually make my way home using my key to get home. Nobody was bothering me. I mean, we were just living in a different time then. Like, I was on a first name basis with all the crackheads and crack hoes. Like, what a time to be alive, baby. What a time. What a time. First name basis with all of the crackheads and the crack hoes. Like, we were cool. They wasn't trying to hurt or harm me. I wasn't, disrespectful or unkind to them. Like, they were living their life, but they saw that I was going to school. I had clearly had a routine about myself. So it was nothing for them to see me every day, either walking to or from wherever it was that I was going to or from, school or the library or whatnot. But it was just a different time. So in my mind, at least then, which, I'm a very nostalgic person, so I kind of live in those real specific memories. But it was, to me, a very wonderful time to have kids. And I had even done, which I feel like I've said before, I can't remember the capacity, but I have an external hard drive right now with all of the forms of media that were my favorites. So all of my favorite TV shows growing up, all of my favorite movies, if there were any books or magazines or comics, like all of that. I have it on the flash drive. I don't know what the future holds as far as technology, so I hope I don't have to buy another device to convert these files over to. But anyway, I had all these things saved. I still carry it with me to this day, just on the possibility that I will encounter, whether it be somewhere down the line, my own children, or just some other person that this content will benefit. And I know we're living in a very commercialized period of time right now where everybody is a walking commercial. Everybody's trying to sell you something. Everybody's trying to, create content, not always necessarily for money, but it's a strong possibility. But, just like with the internet, it is not as long-serving and long-standing as you think it is. So I didn't want anything that I liked to disappear. Or, because I think, I think there were some remakes in the 90s, but remakes definitely became popular in the 2000s. So it was to preserve the original idea just in case, it disappeared or went away. Because that's when you can count on collections not being available everywhere. And then, we were switching from the Betamax to the DVD. Just a lot of things happening in the world. So it was so much change. So I just wanted to make sure I had all of the content so that, if something came up, I wouldn't have to be trying to find something. And then, I don't know if you all remember the Shazam debacle with Shaq and Sinbad, but I remember, and we're not going to get into it now, I'm going to let it go, but I remember a Shaq movie and I remember a Sinbad movie. I do. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. So for reasons of, I don't know, like a guarantee of proof, that was kind of what the drive was. It was to solidify as I remember it. That's how I saved it. And in my mind, it would be very far-fetched for somebody to be able to go into my external hard drive and change the file. Like, I would have what was. Because, there's a lot about this world where we are entering into the Mandela effect, where as we remember it, it is not so. But yeah, so, had this drive, curated a bunch of content for these future children that I had hoped to be able to have. I will say, as far as a clock ticking, I don't know that I ever necessarily heard one. Um, but I grew up with my mother, and she, for a period of time anyway, uh, basically got a promotion like every year. So, it was less about working hard, but definitely curating a very specific skill set. So that, you were constantly blessed in that way. So I think somewhere along the line for me, because biologically, it's just easier for women to have children than for men to have children. So my desire to have kids was literally just that. It was just a desire to have kids. And as if you were here with us last week, and we're talking about relationships, I've had some doozies. So it is probably for good reason that I have not had them yet. However, I have definitely been working very hard professionally to ensure that their quality of life, I'm not even going to say is better or worse than, but it is a quality life. And then to your point, Eric, about just a dream, I won't even say, I was about to say defer, which is not even what I was talking about, but having a dream, and even if it isn't your dream, someone else has a dream and you sort of embrace that dream for yourself. Because I don't believe. No, let me rephrase. There are a number of things that I have felt pressure from my family to do. Mainly around education and work, oddly enough. Not so much around family. And I don't know if that's because of our own family, but it's just like, hey, we're good. We don't need to do this. Like, everything's fine. So like on that, I feel like I have appeased everybody. Went to school, I got the degrees, traveled the world, seem relatively social. I grew up around adults, so adults are like honestly who I fuck with. Don't get me wrong, kids in my family are cool and we have our jokes or whatever, but I do like let them grow up. And then when they grow up, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I don't know that I've ever experienced any actual pressure from family to have children. I will say, the what is it? I don't know. The understood thing about being a parent, I suppose, is having some success in the pocket, so that when you are in conversation with another parent and they're talking about their kid, that you're able to say something. In those moments, I become aware, just on the presentation of information, that, oh, okay, I'm not going to say that I'm not doing enough, but in line with other people, I am not where they think I should be on these things. But I will say I've had in other areas, I've had, a very, illustrious and expansive, career opportunity. So on the parenthood side, that is the one area that I have not spent the same amount of time, effort, and energy. I remember when I was I think it might have been my 10th birthday. So my grandmother had my mother at 20. My mother had me. No, I'm sorry. My grandmother had my mother at 30. My mother had me at 20. And then when I turned 10, and hear me out, I've had this joke in my brain for the longest time. So when I turned 10, the way I hit them all with, look, don't be expecting no babies now. And it probably took a beat, like a very brief beat, before they caught the joke without me having to explain the joke. And I'm just like, no, we're restarting the clock on this one. And that probably sealed my fate right there. I probably should have never said that, because that definitely changed some things. But like I said, the desire has always been there. I don't know, for me, if it was ever a dream that I a dream that a dream that was shared with me that I then developed, like separate from any date or relationship or anything. Like I always wanted children, but I wanted children for the fun parts. And I don't know if that's a fair reason to become a parent, is specifically for the fun parts. Like I had also taken into consideration just, how busy I had made my life, again, in trying to process things for myself and others, and then reassessing what family looked like to me, right? Because a number of things transpired before my 30s that informed my 30s. But I was too busy trying to, complete a degree, because that was very big for whatever reason. I won't say that I forgot that I wanted to be a parent, but it did not chart very high, and it wasn't as easy to do as, reading this book and writing, a paper on something, or, doing this research and, analyzing the results. Like those were all very much achievable things to do. Much more so in a way that, parenting or becoming a parent was not. Yeah. I'm sorry, somebody just messaged. Just turn this shit off. Yeah, I think I was propelled to focus more on professionally what I had going on and not personally what I wanted to do. And then again, being male, I don't want to be dismissive of it, but I don't have the, because a baby doesn't end with me. So, you can have all the sex in the world, but the baby doesn't end with me. So there's no control there, right? I mean, yeah, you can make one, but because it doesn't end with me, if I did make one, like I was never notified, so there was no way to sort of carry this thing forward. But yeah, so let's take a break right there. We'll be right back with more honest talk about parenthood, societal expectations, and building legacy your way. We'll be right back.
This is Woodsy. Not just a brand, a movement, a mindset, a mirror, a place where community meets creativity, where healing meets hustle, and where unapologetic Black excellence gets to speak loud, clear, and free. We build workshops that grow the soul. We tell stories that shift the culture. We host spaces that hold all of code switching required. If you ever felt too much, not enough, or stuck in between, Woodsy was built for you. This is radical rest. This is real talk. This is creative power, reimagined. Woodsy. Rooted in truth. Rising in power. Learn more at woodsy.llc and join the journey.
All right, welcome back. We've all felt it, that pressure. So let's get into it. How do you handle societal or family expectations about having children?
Boundaries. Sharp ones. I tell people directly, my life has meaning, with or without children. If they press, I remind myself, I owe no one an explanation for how I build my joy.
Lotta therapy. Ha ha ha. Honestly, my parents didn't understand at first, especially the adoption part, but we stayed patient. We let them get to know our daughter. Love, over time, softened the resistance.
I'm still learning how to answer those loaded Thanksgiving table questions without feeling cornered. Sometimes I just say, we're focusing on building a healthy life together first. It's simple, but it keeps the conversation moving.
Oh, boundaries, my old friend. As we know already, because I've talked about this on the show before, boundaries and I are at an impasse. We are trying to figure some things out. So that's a really good point, Dr. Ellis. My therapist and I get into this conversation kind of often. I do not have a problem with boundaries. I am happy to establish those boundaries, but I know the people who come to me for help, which is the reason I'm in the situation I'm in, currently, professionally and academically, they don't have other people to go to for help. So if I don't help them, it will just never get done. And sometimes it truly is life or death. Why am I always their resource when it's life or death? That is a really good question. But I don't let myself live in that space. But I have been trying to work out boundaries. But it's a really good point that you made about my life has meaning with or without children, because Chelsea Handler specifically is one of my favorite people on the matter of being an adult and choosing to not have children, and that it's especially heightened because she's a woman, to really understand or not even reclassify, to classify what your life means, of the many options that are available as far as curating your life. You got to pick which ones you want. In the same way you go to your closet every morning to pick out what clothes you're going to wear, or your chest of drawers or or your dresser to pick out whichever clothes you're going to wear for the day. Much is the same about the quality of your life and the choices you're going to make within it. And she has a lot of great Chelsea has a lot of great commentary, even comedy specials where she is talking about it. And I think you almost have to have a very stern way of thinking about children in your life. Now, granted, she has dogs, has had a lot of dogs, and I wouldn't necessarily say that they are placeholders, but I think with children, one thing that is not necessarily taken into consideration is manageability. And it's, if you lead, especially the life that she leads, where she's traveling all the time, very much in and out of the country, doing a lot of work in spaces where children are not accepted. Like, why have a child if you can't give them the level of attention that they deserve? It's less about liking or disliking children, but it's the quality of life that they deserve. It's not the quality of life that you're living. So that's a really good point about boundaries and establishing what meaning is in your life with or without children. Eric, to your point about therapy, agreed. In therapy, not specifically about children, but like I mentioned, definitely about boundaries in particular, and loss. I think I have. We have not gotten to this conversationally, but abandonment issues in particular, and a number of which I feel like I broke myself out of that, because I can remember being a child and hearing my mother talk about, and even to this day, and her mother's been dead 21 years now. No, wait, almost 20 years now. That, she, when it came time for my mother to have me, like, she wasn't going to raise me in the same way that her mother raised her. But I don't know, story for story, I can tell you something that my mother did to me that is very much influenced by something that her mother did to her, but go off. So I think in the same way, that's a generational curse that you pass down to expressly say what you are not going to do, and every action you make literally leads to that thing. It's interesting. But I have also considered adoption and fostering, and even just to satisfy the bug when you feel it, like babysitting. I offer my babysitting services to all of my friends. I have a couple of god kids, because I'm kind of easy peasy in that way. Like, we're gonna have fun. I don't ask much from children. Just mind. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm not asking you to be an angel, but just be mindful when you're in a space. If you can't think of anything else, just model me in whatever the space is. If I'm not talking, you should be talking. And I think we've had a pretty good time. But like I will say, to your point about being patient, one, with people and having patience with yourself, so that, because it takes, for me anyway, it takes a while for me to convince myself of something. I remember when I first went to therapy or was considering going to therapy, the way that I phrased possibly needing therapy to my primary care physician. We had finished my regular checkup or whatever, and he was like, are there any other questions you have about anything or anything you want to talk about? And this is exactly what I said. Sometimes I'm telling myself not to do things and I don't listen. And he said, oh yeah, that happens. So he's like, have you considered therapy? And I was like, not really, primarily because I just didn't know how to approach it. But he was like, maybe you should consider therapy. Like, sometimes biologically and mentally, there's opposition. Physically, you cannot do something that your mind has a very firm belief that you can do. And you have to either update yourself biologically. So whether that's, strength training or rest, like whatever the thing your mind is saying you can do, and your body's like, get somebody else to do it. You have to strengthen whatever that thing is, or vice versa. You can physically do the thing, but anxiety or fear or just a mental block is not allowing you to. So you have to develop tools in order to do that. So he recommended therapy, and I did my research, and I ended up finding my therapist, who I've been rocking with for a while, and we have gone through a tragedy together. So that was helpful, because I don't know that I've had a therapist at my disposal when bad things have happened, not necessarily to me, but like around me, I suppose. So, that was interesting. But yes, I will co-sign on the patience, because I do believe that, I won't say societally, because society don't really fuck with me like that on that. Now, if it's about, education and work and progress, and especially now, because I remember a time when social media came out and my mother swore up and down, I ain't with that social media shit. I'm not getting on there, have everybody have all my personal information. Now she on there every motherfucking day, sending me shit every day. Mind how the world changes, So, so having patience with people that sometimes can't see the vision. Like, I know exactly what I want my life to be. I know exactly how I'm going to get there, whether people believe me or not, and all the things. I don't even really have a bucket list per se, but like all the things I've wanted to do in my life, whether they were spoken or unspoken, I have gotten to do. I have and will continue to travel the world. I am almost finished with this doctoral degree. Like, I've got friends, some of everywhere, would love to see them more, but still got friends, some of everywhere. Things that presented as challenges to me that I did not necessarily understand or know how to do at the beginning, I have since figured out how to do, and have, had a blast doing them. Whether that was, learning more about publishing, because I had an interest in writing a book, to not only writing the book, but then editing the book and then actually publishing said book and subsequent books after that. Like, just, there hasn't been a thing that has stopped me. So I would argue, for me, societally, there are no expectations of me, because somewhere in the game, like, somebody knows, oh, he got it. Like, I am not worried about, I wish I was, but I am not worried about in the way that maybe other people are, because I'm always doing something. So I don't know if people have enough time to expect things from me, because the shit that I am doing, they didn't even see coming. Like, that was not on their bingo. That was not on their bingo card for me today in this moment. So to find out that, oh, he moved where, or he's doing what, he's working where. So, I feel I've had a very illustrious, personal and professional and academic life up until this point. Like, I'm down to continue for 60 more years. But I guess it's been, I've packed a few things into these years so far. So to have done all of this, and I wouldn't even say accomplished, but to have just had the opportunity to do it, however it presented itself, has been a ride in and of itself. And Jasmine, I think I'm gonna steal that. How did you how did you phrase that? I'm still, what'd you say? I'm still learning how to answer the loaded Thanksgiving table questions without feeling cornered. Now, the Thanksgiving for my family is, it's none of that. Ain't nobody, now don't get me wrong. We all in our own way, shape and form, talk shit about everybody because we're funny in that way. Like we're funny. We're hilarious. So that's just us flexing that muscle because we don't necessarily get to do it in the way that we do it when we're amongst ourselves and the same way we are when we're amongst other people. But I'm going to steal that phrasing. But the larger point about focusing on building a healthy life together first, chef's kiss, like that's wonderful. And I think that's a part that more so I would argue in Black families than any other group. Because I don't necessarily hear, except in ethnicities that culturally, marriage and babies happen very early, which, one would argue was a part of the African experience as well. And that has been whited out of us in a way that, there are lots of people who, get on young girls for having children at a young age, but like that was good, bad, or indifferent. That was culturally, a part of different practices. In Africa, the men would choose a young wife, obviously who was fertile, who could have children, get those kids out of the way so that, whatever it was that they were into, whether they were farming or if they were of royalty or whatever their particular tribe was responsible for, you had sort of your extended family, your team, your tribe was built from all of your people. So you had to have these children at a young age. So, I understand it. But I think that has been whitened out of us, through a number of historically significant and tragic acts. Just in case there are any white listeners, that's a reference to slavery and a number of other things. That one was for you. But either way, focusing on a healthy life together first. And I would argue to that point, that is not conducive to whether you are in a relationship or not, like completely unrelated, just establishing a healthy life first before you bring somebody else into it. Because if you are not, stable in your finances and other things, like why would you bring a child that is at minimum going to cost you $1 million over the course of, their 25 years of life? Because they will more than likely still be living with you. You got to put in some additional work. And, the sex is a very simple act. Even if you do it terribly, you can make a baby. So like, let's chill out on that, because if your quality of life is trash, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? You can't provide in your child any more so than you were provided for. And not that should always be the goal, because in your absence of things, it really developed your character. For some of you, you are truly appreciative of the things that you do actually have in life because you didn't grow up with things. So now that you have the capacity to do it, and there are a number of, comedians who tell jokes about, having grown up poor or without, when they finally got money, all the things that they didn't have when they were growing up, they got those things, but there is an appreciation for them as a result of them now being able to have those things, or the choice for those things being theirs. It's now no longer somebody else deciding whether you can or can't have name brand cereal and have the prize in the box, but you get to decide that. And then how many boxes of that $7 a box cereal, what the fuck is going on, is still your choice. So I like to feel that I'm living like right there. I have maybe too much, but I have definitely spent a lot of time trying to build a healthy life for me first, so that, I'm not carrying any trauma into somebody else's life, that I have the capacity not only to respond, but to listen first and truly understand what somebody is saying. And then to be able to care for somebody else, because, having children definitely means a portion of sacrifice. Now, some people would argue that you could take those kids with you, yes, in spaces where you can take children, but there are some spaces where you cannot take children. And, my childhood experience, much like my mother's, when my mother wanted to go out, or her mother wanted to go out, you would find people to watch your kids. And that's cool. That's cool. I was one of those kids. Everybody wanted to keep me because I was a good kid. I'm not fucking up your shit because you're helping me out right now. I get to be somewhere on a routine that is not my normal routine. So, if y'all like to go out to eat and don't necessarily eat at home, that means I get to go out to eat in the middle of the week, which I don't normally do when I'm at home. Or, whatever your family dynamic is. So I got to stay with just about all of my friends, either at their house or even go on vacations with them, which was an absolute fucking treat because I didn't take vacations very much as a child. That was not a real thing that we did. We did stuff locally, but we didn't go places. We didn't really start to travel as a family until we were very much into adulthood. So to be able to go with my friends, and I could stay with people forever. People would call and ask if they could keep me. That's how well loved I was by not just family, but friends as well. Like they would call and be like, "Hey, what Robert doing this weekend? Oh, nothing. He want to come over?" And so, people would love to take me. So I'm a little spoiled in that way, but I really support the idea and the notion of building a healthy life, because that is truly what matters, especially now in today's age where everybody is awake, pun intended. It's too many people with an opinion about everything. And there is no one way to live this life successfully. There are people who didn't get any degrees who have become successful just on the mention of an idea. And there are people who have had to work very fucking hard to make things happen. So, there's no one way to do this. So I think there's freedom and flexibility to truly build how you want to build, because I think the only person who truly sees the vision for whatever it is you want to do in life is you. I mean, even down to having children, you have choice in your partner. I know a lot of you don't seem to think that, because you have sex with people and then you have a baby and it's just like, I wish I could control who the father of my child was. You can. You didn't, but you can. You saw somebody that looked nice but was not nice, and now you have a baby that looks nice who might grow up to not be nice. And those are choices that we have to live with. But, go off. But to the point of like a timeline and, the things you do in your teens, things you do in your tweens, things you do in your 30s. It's hard when your timeline doesn't match your family's expectations, or Instagram's for that matter. So now, briefly, what advice would you give to someone undecided about parenthood?
Protect your indecision like it's sacred. You don't owe a rushed answer to anyone.
Ask yourself, who do you imagine celebrating milestones with? That'll tell you a lot.
Release the deadline. Life doesn't run on a timer. You're not late to your own story.
All great advice. To someone who is undecided about parenthood, separate from advice, which I think everybody has given really good advice, I would ask, which is a common question, we should all really be talking to ourselves a lot more, but why do you think you want children? I remember when my dad died, and only because is there anything more recent? It's a very recent example. It still trips me up. But when my dad died, my sister had said to me that she, specific to legacy, like, because he had all these kids that, we were his legacy. And I don't agree with that. I don't think just, biologically having children constitutes legacy. I don't think just the fact that you made children and those children are here is legacy. Like that doesn't really make any sense to me. Especially specifically to like, skill set or ability or access. You don't continue what that person did in the way of those things. So for instance, my dad, could catch the bus and walk all over the city. He was not directionally challenged, like definitely not a person who could get lost anywhere. So for him to have children who don't know how to catch the bus are very much directionally challenged, and you could drop them off and it would take them, drop them off someplace without their phone, they're going to cry because they don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to go anywhere. So, when I'm thinking of skill set, when I'm thinking of legacy specifically, I'm thinking of skill set. Like it's a thing that you are leaving in this earth. Not just a look, not just a face, but characteristics. Like that's a passed downable thing in the same way that money is a passed downable thing. But just to physically be here, I don't really constitute that in the same way. But I would ask, like, why in this moment anyway, do you want to have children or think about children, or more specifically, in what way or what capacity would children enhance the quality of your life? Because life is hard enough. Life is hard enough. And then you want to try to breastfeed a baby and your titty's not working? The baby don't want your titty? The baby is hurting your titty. The baby won't go to sleep and you need sleep. Now, in the good old days where you could have a baby and be at home, hey, I salute you. But now where you're working jobs that don't necessarily give you maternity leave in a real fashion, you are basically rushed back to work. Doctors don't take pregnancy seriously, specifically in the Black community, Black women in particular, and they will set you up to die. Like, for the Black community, parenthood really should be a more specific conversation, because unlike, I'll say 20, 30, maybe even 40 years ago, where, medically, a number of Black women were dying in childbirth, like, numbers are, I'm not going to say increasing, but numbers are still present. Technology and medicine has truly advanced, and we still have mothers out here dying in childbirth for things that, if acknowledged and observed, could have been treated. Like, so you really have to honestly have a conversation about parenthood. I think parenthood is an intentional thing. Now, don't get me wrong. You can be intentional about being a parent and still be surprised by a child. But I don't think, having a child should be as haphazard as, I went to the club, I had a really good time. You got the dog shit fucked out of you. And then, here come a baby. And then you just decide to keep the baby. I don't think it should be like that haphazard. But if that's your choice, that's your choice. But I don't know how you plan for something that haphazardly. You were going to go out and have a good time. And I'm not, talking about the use of condoms and all that other stuff, but or abortion or any of that stuff. It's just, when you decide that you want to be a parent and to have a family, I don't know how it serves you to do it without any thought. So I would ask, for someone who is very much undecided about parenthood, like, in what way would a child enhance the quality of your life? Or a follow-up to that, in what way would you enhance the quality of life for a child? Because, I'm very much a loner, have always been. I can do just about any and everything, like, by myself. I've traveled by myself. I can go to the movies by myself. I go out to eat by myself. Have no shame about any of that, because I won't say I make friends, but I'm cool with the people where I'm at. I still say my pleases and thank yous. I, tip decently. You all have gotten out of control with this tipping shit, but, I'm paying for the meal, not your rent. The fuck? So, but, happy to exist in these spaces. happy to exist in these spaces, but everything within reason. So in what way would a child improve the quality of your life or add to the quality of your life? And in what way could you improve or add to the quality of the child's life? If you don't have really good answers to either of those questions, nut in that paper towel and wash your hands. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, be free. Do not fold and bend to societal or familial expectations, because, all these people who have put pressures on you to have a child, when it's time for you to need a babysitter, or when you do need a moment for your mental health, are these people going to help you with the child or children? Okay, then. So why don't we care what they think? If they aren't going to help you, hell, even if they are going to help you, to what end? They will say no one day, or they will not be available one day, and then your plans are changed. That just feels like another form of bondage in that point, because it is not truly free will. You put yourself at the mercy of another person or another group of people to help you get something done. And do you really want to be there? I know I don't really want to be there. I don't like depending on people, because I can't depend on people in the way that they can depend on me. So I never want to ever be in that position. Ever again in my fucking life. Ever. But that's what I would offer. Like, to your point, Dr. Ellis, indecision is sacred. If you just honestly do not know right now, you do not know right now. And however long it takes for you to know is however long it takes for you to know. And I think, Eric, you made a good point specifically about, who do you imagine celebrating milestones with? When you think about your birthday in 20 years, do you want that birthday table to be surrounded by a bunch of teen and tween adults? Like all of these, which make me cry, by the way. But all of these videos where, people are celebrating, mothers and fathers are celebrating their 60th and 70th birthday, and all of their kids are finally home at the same time. And they, cry or fall on the floor or hug people and look like they're about to break their legs. Yeah. Think about that. Like, are you content for your milestones to be celebrated with your adult family and friends, or do you want some little crumb snatchers trying to blow out the candles in your cake? Think about that. And Jasmine, your point about life not running on a timer is so important. Like, while life is fleeting and we do not know when it is going to end, the worry about whether or not the investment of children is going to, work out for you just seems like a terrible use of time. Like, if you do not have the innate desire and the extreme opportunity to do so, chill on that. I mean, I can speak more specifically about just life in a timer educationally. I did not have the capacity, the wherewithal, or the resources to have completed a degree in the timeline that is established for, completing your degree. Right after high school, you go into college, 4 years, and then you graduate. That did not work out for me that way. But I still got it. Yes, it came later, but I still got it. So I would argue, that's a perfect real life, real world example of how you expect for things to go might not necessarily always be how they go. And to your point, because life doesn't run on a timer, you are truly not late for your own story. You got there when you were supposed to get there. Or, if you don't like that logic, you got there when you got there. It happened. And, if that was, always the concern, you got there. So celebrate the fact that you got there. All right. So still ahead, how legacy can mean so much more than genetics. We'll be right back.
At Woodsy, we don't just write books. With the help of our publishing house, Hazelwood Press, we release blueprints. We print power. We publish purpose. From self-help to soul work, essays to exploration, we're celebrating new releases, timeless re-releases, and this October, our very first novel, Bedlam, drops. Stories that shift culture. Books that build legacy. Voices that deserve to be heard. Got a book in you? Want to tell your story your way? Let's make it real. Visit woodsy.llc to learn more about our publishing support, author services, and how to join our growing community of storytellers. Woodsy, rooted in truth, rising in power, writing the next chapter with you.
All right, welcome back. Final question for the day. How has your view on family and legacy evolved over time?
Legacy, for me, is the energy I leave behind. The kids I mentor. The clients I coach. I'm planting trees whose shade I'll never sit under, and that's enough.
I thought legacy had to be blood. Now I know it's love. It's bedtime stories and boo-boo kisses and cheering at dance recitals.
I used to think family had to look a certain way. Now I know family is chosen, built, and nurtured. Legacy is about impact, not just inheritance.
Dr. Ellis, that was a really good point that, legacy is the energy that you leave behind. Like I mentioned in the last segment, what my sister said, just the fact that, our dad had all of these kids was legacy enough. And it was, I think for me in that particular instance, the energy, or skill set or resource, is the left behind thing. And the things that were very much character traits for our father, I would argue that my siblings, maybe the older ones, maybe my brother and I, but for everyone else, I don't think they might favor him. But if nobody met him, they wouldn't get the, oh, you look just like, because there would be no context for that. But as far as the skill set, to meet somebody who did know him, they wouldn't know that you got something from him, like he taught you how to do this, or just innately you are good at this thing as a result of it, because it doesn't seem to be energy that is left behind. You don't really know how to do the thing, which is just interesting to me. Eric, I think you make a really good point too, that, legacy is love. Now on that point, I might argue specifically with that example with my sister would make sense that, legacy is truly about love. And I would double down and say, sort of touch points left in the earth of that love. So I would argue my legacy would be definitely a lot of the written works, which was another reason to, write the books and whatnot, so that there is a, legal and legitimate, ISBN in that particular case that leaves my work in the world. So whether you belong to me like family or a friend I've made along the way or just someone out in the world, I have left something for you. I'm not here anymore, but the work can live on. It is something in the earth that can live on. And it is truly my love letter to the world that I was fortunate enough to be a part of. Here, enjoy. I'll see y'all later. You know what I mean? The Jasmine, you make a really good point about family being chosen, built and nurtured. And I would doubly agree with that, because I think some of the best interactions that I've had with people have not necessarily been ones I was born into, but people I've met along the way who, while my family has definitely been an interesting base to have, to meet other people who very much understand without explanation the way I do things, why I do things, how I understand. That's just a beautiful thing when you can find your tribe. And I think that is real legacy, is to be able to go through this world and find your people who truly understand and acknowledge and embrace you. I won't say without change, but definitely before, in the middle, and post growth. They are, and don't get me wrong, you don't need necessarily a lot of people, but they are along for the ride. They get a chance to see you becoming whoever it is you are meant to be. And that's assuming you achieve that. Sometimes the real game is just the art or the act of becoming, just the work one puts into oneself to become. And that in and of itself could, impact somebody else's life to be like, oh, if I was about to go Sister Act 2, if you want to be somebody and you want to go somewhere, you better wake up and pay attention. And boo, just rockets off. Anyway, I I really do believe that family is who we build it with. And legacy is how we make people feel when we're gone. I don't think legacy can happen while you are still on this earth. I think it truly does happen when you are no longer here anymore. What is the true extent of your beingness? What impact did you make in the earth? And I think a really good example, tired but good, is Martin Luther King. And not that it's wrong to just, keep talking about him, but there are a number of unspoken heroes that have been overshadowed because of that. But again, to that point, he has a very rich legacy, good, bad, or indifferent. There are people who are extremely disconnected, to and from that struggle. So they only, understand it in pieces. But, with the King Center, his children following in his footsteps for justice and civility, like that is a legacy that is in and of the earth. So not only the fact that he had children, but the children are carrying on in that work. They have created institutions and structures that are about that work so that the work can continue, so that it did not stop because he was murdered by the government. But the work continues. The bearers of said armor have, the guards have changed. The guards have changed, but the work still continues. And I really do think that that's a big part about legacy. Like I said, a number of things that I would consider outputs for the effort that would, create whatever legacy does become is what your life is. You're doing all of these things in life so that when you pass, not necessarily at your funeral, but that's a good indication when they are writing your obituary and talking about who you were as a person while you were here. Like that is a good definition to me of like the legacy you leave behind. Now, I don't think legacy to the point of, family is who you build it with, that your legacy is always indicative of the people that you came up in this life with. You might have just some really good friends who in your passing acknowledge your courage, maybe even your level of discipline, and they choose to be courageous and disciplined as a result of that. So they are carrying on in your absence these skill traits because they do lead to things that other people want. So I guess it really depends on what people want in your absence. Like if they want to be successful, to follow in your footsteps, to believe that they can pursue education to the furthest degree of their interest, and to have you as an example for, he is the reason why I believe that I can do this, because he didn't have to. I almost went to church. He didn't have to do it, but he did. He didn't have to do it, nor did he do it for me. But as an example for how to do it, like I now have this as a personal example for me of how to, be, successful or disciplined or whatever the case may be. Because I think just overall, specifically with parenting, but just anything, no matter what decision you make, what matters is that it's yours. I believe that there are a number of institutions that would suggest we don't have choice in the way that we think we do. And I am very much, argumentative, but I am very much of the mindset that I have more in the way of choice than we are conditioned to believe that we do. And, specific to the man who's currently in the White House, I have said, if shit gets too weird, I'm out of here. And I feel that as an argument is separate from saying like, if he got elected, that I would leave the United States. But it's, to a point, everyone is tolerable. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a certain amount of pain that we are all experiencing anyway. So I don't, really put too much emphasis on someone's presence in a space being a rationale for me to leave. But if someone is doing something that is specifically and directly hurting me, and my only option is to get up out of there to avoid being hurt in this way, that's a fair option to have. Now, does that necessarily mean that it's going to be easy, achievable, or accessible? Not necessarily. But I am a firm believer, not just like, religiously or biblically, but just because it is proven to be true for me that I can do all things. I am able to do all things. Do I have the education or resources or transportation or access to do it? Maybe not. Can I get those things if I don't have them? Definitely. Will it be easy? Maybe, maybe not. Is it worth the work to do? Possibly. But I think those are all factors that you take into consideration when you were making whatever the choice is. So I think in all things, even down to parenting, it's truly reminding yourself that you have a choice. If you don't want to do it, don't feel you can do it right now, like, release that burden. Like, why do to yourself what others, or what you feel others are doing to you? If you want to be a parent, or you want to have a child or children or a family, and just now is not the time for that. Not that it won't ever come, but just like right now, in this moment when you're thinking about it or being asked about it, it just is not the time for that. Be firm in that. Like that, I think that that's okay. Does that open up the possibility of, something changing in the future? Definitely. And what did you say? It reminded me of what I said in the last segment, specifically about my external hard drive, but it's bedtime stories and boo-boo kisses and cheering at dance recitals. Like, it matters in a way that perhaps it might not matter to other people. So why be so frivolous, with the decision, when that's what it's about. When we're talking about, parenthood and that love, it's about those things. So if you don't have the time, effort, or energy to commit to those things, what does it matter that other people want you to have them or not? Like, you cannot commit to those things. I think that's fair. All right. You know what? We'll take a break and come back with final thoughts. We'll be right back.
Ever wanted to build new skills on your time, your terms, your vibe? Say less. Woodsy workshops are finally here. From creative storytelling to real-life skill building, Woodsy is your new home for bold, unapologetic learning. Our flagship series, Kiss My Ass, Unsolicited Advice for the Soul and the Systems, is now live. This ain't your average course. We're talking truth-telling, self-reflection, and designed to shake the table and set it. And soon, our Woodsy Journalism Project drops made for truth seekers, culture shifters, and everyday storytellers ready to use their voice with purpose. Whether you're leveling up, healing forward, or just curious to try something new, Woodsy has a workshop for you. Visit www.woodsy LLC to explore, enroll, and evolve. Woodsy, where soul meets skill.
All right, welcome back. Final thoughts. Big love and big thanks to Dr. Simone, Eric, and Jasmine for sharing your stories with us today. This conversation is for anyone sitting in the messy middle of their decisions. Remember, you don't have to explain yourself to people who won't live with the consequences. Give yourself permission to choose. Choose joy. Choose your peace. Choose your path. All right, y'all. Thank you for riding with us. You can always catch more episodes, resources, and community support over at woodsy.llc. Follow us, review us, and let's keep this conversation going. I'll see you next week. Bye.